that we're going to be talking about the Reclaim game, which is a collaborative resource recovery game for urban sanitation planning. And the team that's been behind this it's a project that we call SPANS, which is Sanitation Planning for Alternative Nutrient Recovery Systems. And we are represented by the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences with myself and Annika Nordin, who is there. Annika has been part of designing some of the pictures on the cards. And we also have the University of Makerere in Uganda, who is part of this with Charles Nwagaba. And Chalmers is involved in the development of this game as well with Monica Bilgers and Jan Henrik Hein. The RISE, the Research Institutes of Sweden, is also part of this project. So that is who the project is that has been doing this. And with that, I would like to start to introduce to you Monica Bilger, who is a professor in architectural theory and methods at the University of Chalmers University of Technology. And her research is focused on visualization and innovation in planning tools. So she uses the concept of serious gaming in several projects as a way to bring in visualization and collaboration into different planning processes. So she's going to give us an introduction here to the concept of serious gaming. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you, Jennifer. I will share my screen. I had started the process. We'll see. It looks different when you're inside here. So now, do you see anything? It did work when we tested. It is here. Here it is, and open. I do it once again from the beginning. Then it's probably something with Teams and me. So yes.
Well, Monica,
yes, now.
She's got. Just saying to anyone else who's just been joining that if you want to write into the chat where you're from, then we can see a little bit who's here. Thanks.
And you are also welcome to write if you have any questions, and then I think I will get help from Finn or Jennifer to see them if I don't see your questions. So thank you, Jennifer, for the introduction, and nice to see all of you here. Jennifer talked a little bit about the SPANS project, and I will just say that in this project, it's quite a broad project, but we also explore how new technologies and ways of planning can improve the recovery and reuse of important fertilizing nutrients from wastewater. So we are focusing on this sanitation chain, and especially the green part in the chain. So if we go from the capture to the collection to the treatment, the focus here is also, could we actually make reuse of some of the good nutrients we have here? Could we use them for farming? We can kind of them into the loop. So why are we exploring the use of games in this project? Games have been shown in research that they can motivate learning, which we think is very important, of course, for getting people to learn new things and changing attitudes or acceptance of new technologies, or and we know that gaming can enhance learning, and it can also be fun, and fun is good. That will also make it easier for us to learn. Actually, the brain works that way. And then of course we want to increase engagement and participation. By gaming, you can make people reflect together and thereby also create trust, and to bring all the stakeholders together around the sanitation chain. That's an important part of the game. And then problem solving, of course. Can we solve problems together and make decisions together? And also learn collectively and understand each other's perspectives and the stakeholder roles, and then reflect together, as I said, to create the trust needed. There is one question that I want to bring up from the theory of games. That is this discussion about, should we have digital and non-digital games? And I haven't seen many studies on this, but I saw one study where they, this Kaufman and Flanagan, where they actually play the same game, both digitally and non-digitally. And it is about a virus spreading. Sounds familiar? And it is also with a simulation which is realistic in a way. And they made the gamers play both. We had groups that played the digital game and groups that played the analog board game, a card game, board game. And in both these games, they did exactly the same things. They were getting a story. Okay, this is how the state is right now of the virus, and these are the resources you have. And then they collectively had to take a decision on how to use the resources and the next step. And what they actually could see here was that in this game, in a way, the analog game took longer time to learn. Maybe if one took 30 minutes, the other took 1 hour or a quarter and 30 minutes. It was double the time at least. However, the analog game supported more thought-through playing and more collaboration. What they saw was that the players in the digital game, they were just going for the first one, screaming, I have an idea. They went for the idea. And then the failure rate was much, much higher because they didn't take time to talk. And that they did in the analog game. This doesn't mean that you cannot have simulation games that are digital and actually makes this happen to have the collaboration. It's just that we kind of have to be aware that maybe the board game sitting down around may easier way of supporting, but we also takes longer time. So we had this in mind when we went on, because we also discussed this with digital and non-digital, or possibly a mix a lot when we've started out with our project. So go over to our game then. We had this about defining the aim. What will the game be about? Who should play it? What are the specifications? So we can talk to a game designer and say, we want this game. And then we made literature reviews, checking out, do we have any games in sanitation or maybe in water or in urban planning? So we kind of have to go through the different groups to see what do they say, what do the other researchers and the practitioners say about this, what is needed. We made interviews with stakeholders. We have some of you here today. We made study visits, and we also made workshops to ask about acceptance of game, need of a game, not need of a game, what could it be used for, what are the important questions, things like this. And then we ended up with an aim that the game should share knowledge about nutrient resource recovery from sanitation and support attitude change and collaboration between players. So we have a threefolded game here. And we had the Swedish stakeholders in the project, and we have the Ugandan stakeholders. We have worked with Kampala city and people work in Kampala city and municipalities around. And there we have had a very big interest and participation in the whole process. The Swedish stakeholders say that they were there in the beginning, discussing and asking them and interviewing, and said that, okay, make a game and we play it when you have come further. So they will be more involved now, later, while all these Ugandan stakeholders have been kind of during all the way. But both these groups, both the countries, had the same, that the attitude change and collaboration is the most important aim. And this with nutrient resource recovery, that is kind of our contribution and what we wanted to make a game of. And we also got other ideas that maybe energy, water, very realistic simulations. We had different other, and we took these things with us to see what can we do with them also. We have a target audience that we decided to be politicians and professionals in decision-making decisions, and that is the main target audience. However, if we do have them and make a game for them, we are convinced that that will also be good to use with students. We have tested the game with students. It has worked quite well, I think. And all the professionals involved in the sanitation planning, those have actually been main stakeholders involved in the co-design have been professionals in planning different organizations, and also the citizens, of course, and the users of the systems. And you are not supposed to read this, all of this. This is all the details here in small letters. There are just illustrations to show that we came up with quite detailed game specifications. I think that Jennifer will ask Eric later here, the game designer, because we went to him and said, okay, to make a good game, all of these things, these are our requirements. We have 6 categories: game design, game use, game users, game development, we're game platform, the business model, and under each of these categories, we have subcategories, and they could be up to 10. And each subcategory can have like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 specifications. So that's why I have this illustration of some of the specification lists here. So we said, Eric, please, yeah, you and your team, can you please make this? And he said that maybe you cannot get everything you ask for. So, but we had this when we started the process. We had this list of everything we tried to see what to get. So we can say that if we go over from the whole process again here, we had this inventory of needs first. We had got our game specification and aim and the target groups, and then we started game development workshops with this game designer team and the research team. So we worked closely together, and they made new solutions, game mechanics, elements, and we played and we played and we played and refining. And we also had to say, okay, which of the specifications are important? What can we do them in another way? All the way through. And then on the parallel to this, we had game development discussions with stakeholders in Kampala through Skype. And then when we started with the whole project in 2016, I forgot to say that. But in April 2019, we had 2 playtest sessions with stakeholders in Uganda. We had a smaller group of students first, and then we had a bigger group of +20 with 3 tables. And that was quite interesting. And that is the image below here when you see the simple model of the prototype that we used then. And then we went home with lots of learning, lots of things in our luggage that we were important. We went back to Eric and his team, and then we made refinements, changes, adaptations, and we played and we played and we played again with us and other invited people. And then in February 2020, we had a printed game with us, Kampala, Uganda, and we had game tests that were more rigorous for a week, where we had pre-service before the game, we had a game session, we had a post-discussion in the game session, we had a post-survey, and then we also had post-interviews. So from this game, we learned a lot, and then we have made some changes, some adaptations or some additions after this. And now we have the final prototype that Jennifer will show you about today. So some lessons learned here. The most difficult challenge was to maintain the most important features, to find an optimal level of abstraction of the sanitation system, while still producing engaging play. We couldn't keep everything we wanted from the beginning. It were big discussions, shouldn't we have energy and watering? But that will make it take even longer time to learn the game and to play, because enough time is a crucial issue. Learning to play needs to take time. That's also, we cannot say, but you can learn to play this in 10 minutes, because it seems not to be possible. Whatever, we tried different methods to introduce the game, but it needs to take time. It takes different time if you are a used gamer, but as we can say, most of the people who will play this, we probably are not so used to play games. And anyway, everyone needs to be on board, because that's kind of the whole thing. So that's something we had a time limit of 2 hours from the beginning. We saw that playing the game could go for 90 minutes, but you need to have like half an hour for the introductory part, and you need to have a post-discussion. Otherwise, it's no use, no need of playing in a game. You need to have time for this. So a 3 hours or a half a day, that's the session we have now. We also learned actually that we can make it even more simple. We can take down actions. We can play with smaller parts of the system or do things that makes it simpler. But we have also understood what are the most important features here. So, and also what was fun was that even in the first round in 2019, the game was found to be engaging and stimulate creativity and to allow critical thinking. It's also to visualize and help understanding of resource recovery loops and to visualize the importance of collaborative sanitation planning. I think it was fantastic when we had the students saying that, okay, this is the best visualization we've ever seen of what we have been learning here for 5 years. And I hadn't thought about the game that much, even if I talk about gaming as a visualization method. Then I haven't thought about it like that, really. So it was fun to see, and that collaboration was very strong in the play. So okay, what's next? Some kind of implementation for next part. I mean, we cannot. The game. We need to have some way of handing this over out there. We have planned to have trainer of training courses. We had, of course, planned them this fall. That's not possible, as you understand. So it's a little bit, how are we going? What we want, of course, is to have the stakeholders owning it and using it themselves. And for that, we need to train people who can train other people and can be the play leader, because you need someone leading the play. So that's from me. Any question or anything, Jennifer? No?
No, I haven't seen any questions yet in the chat, but feel free to add any questions here. You can think about it. Yeah. What I thought I'd do now is I'm going to show you a little bit of video that gives a little bit more detail about what's in the game. And after that, we're going to have a panel discussion. So you'll have an opportunity to bring up any questions there as well. So I think I'll start by showing that video, and then we'll come back and bring the questions in during the panel discussion. So I am also going to attempt to show a screen here. Okay. I think we see my screen. Monica, you see it? Good. We're going to try this, and hopefully the sound works. I would like to introduce you to Reclaim, a game that aims to share knowledge about resource recovery from sanitation and support attitude change and collaboration between players. So what's in the game? I'm going to spend this short time to talk you through the pieces and the contents of the game Reclaim. Reclaim includes concepts that are important for understanding the possibilities for resource recovery from sanitation systems. It includes the potential benefits from safe reuse, such as fertilizers and links to food production, but it also includes the potential negative consequences of mismanagement of our sanitation systems, such as water pollution and disease. There are also unexpected events, such as floods, disease, as well as positive potential improvements, such as new innovations and development. With this, we try and capture the dynamics of the society which our sanitation systems are placed in. For example, these players are rolling the dice to see if the untreated excreta in the city becomes disease. In this case, they are unlucky, and several of the excreta dice have been converted into disease. The Reclaim board game is made up of 4 different types of hexagon tiles. There are tiles that illustrate urban areas, those that are made to illustrate rural areas, and there's also water tiles or tiles that represent unusable land, either mountainous or swampy lands. And these tiles can be put together in a way that can represent the city or the area that you are working in. So in this way, the board can be adapted to different circumstances and allows the players to feel at home, and perhaps that this game is playing in their own city. The other piece that is an important part of this game is the resource dice. These dice represent the resources that are in play in the game. The 6 sides of the dice represent the different phases that nutrients within our human waste go through. It can start off as food, which then as we eat it comes out as human excreta or waste. This waste may also be source separated so that you have separated waste, which allows for easier resource recovery and treatment. When it's been treated, it either ends up as a sludge, which is what our conventional waste systems often produce, or it can be transformed into a safely recovered fertilizer for reuse. As pointed out earlier, there is also the possibility that untreated waste can turn into disease, representing the 6th side of the dice. The other important piece in this game are a number of cards that represent the types of technologies that get built in our sanitation systems. These cards represent construction at the household level or the building level, so different types of user interfaces for collecting and managing human excreta at a housing level. There are also treatment cards, which represent how we can treat our sanitation products. And there are a number of farms or potential areas where we may reuse the products that have been recovered from our sanitation systems. These 3 different types of technology cards are also linked to the Guide for Sanitation Resource Recovery Products and Technologies, which is a new document that has been released by the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences in collaboration with our partners. The EAVAG Compendium of Sanitation Systems and Technologies is also linked and represented in the different types of technologies found for housing levels. During the game, the players have a choice of technologies that they can build. There are always several options available on the table for the players to decide between. In this case, the player has built a new treatment plant and is selecting a card to represent the type of technology for the treatment plant they've just built. Then they place that treatment plant on the board. The game is played by 4 players who work together to manage the sanitation systems in an urban area. These 4 players take turns playing 4 different roles within the game. The first role is housing. The person playing this role has an opportunity to build houses and transportation systems. It is in these housing blocks that food gets consumed and is converted either into excreta waste or source separated waste, which then can be transported away from the housing. The treatment role is in charge of building treatment plants to be able to treat the waste that has been collected from the housing areas. Once waste has been transported to a treatment plant, it can be converted either into sludge via our conventional systems, or it can be treated at a resource recovery plant and thus also converted into fertilizers that can be safely reused. You notice here that each of these has 3 different levels of housing or treatment, from black to gray to green. These are, as you go up, they go from 0 to level 2. The treatment and the type of housing improves. There are also farmers in this game, representing the production of food for the urban areas. There are 2 different levels of farms within this game that can produce different amounts of food. So the farms thus convert fertilizer, the NPK, into food. They can also choose to use sludge from the treatment plants, but there is a risk that it has not been safely treated and thus produces disease. The 4th player on the game is a private contractor. This is a player that can take on any of these other roles, building housing, treatment, farms, or transportation systems, but they have to pay a higher cost for it. Let me show you how this play might look.
The contractor could maybe help out in the end to get the food out to people, maybe by building this road or the Oh, actually, if you build one road here, you could drive this way. You don't need to spend money on that.
That's there, and I have under. I have one loss.
Let me show you how the game works. In this case, there are two level 1 houses, represented by the gray blocks on the left. These houses have conventional mixed wastewater systems that are connected to the local treatment plant, as seen by the long gray block. These houses have food, as shown by the dice with the apples on it. This food will eventually be eaten and turn into waste, which can in turn be sent to the treatment plant, where it will be treated and turned into sludge. It is also possible in this game that the treatment plant does not work. By rolling a dice, the treatment may fail to work and the waste ends up out in our waterways, where it may turn into disease. And in this game, we can upgrade these houses to green housing with source-separated systems and green treatment plants where they can do resource recovery. In this case, the situation would look that the food that is eaten at these improved houses can be source separated to look like this. And as it's sent to the treatment plant, where it is treated then to a fertilizer product represented by nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. If transportation is built, this fertilizer from the resource recovery plant can be sent to the local farm fields, where it in turn can be turned into food, which may be eaten to feed the local population. There are 4 rounds in the game, during which each of the players has the opportunity to build infrastructure according to their roles. At the end of each round, the players have an opportunity to collaboratively make decisions regarding vaccination to remove disease, importing food or fertilizer, or removing untreated waste from the city by dumping it into the river. Yeah. These players are just deciding whether or not to dump the waste that's left in town.
But yeah, for the next.
Yeah, for the next round.
Yeah.
Okay, shall we dump this then?
Yeah.
Yeah,
We can leave it. And then we have to throw 1 dice. No, I'm not throwing.
Every round grows, and the players need to continue to build and plan for future waste as new houses grow and make the city larger and larger. At the end of the game, it is possible to visually see the results of the sanitation system that has been built, including the quality of the sanitation systems that are provided based on safely managed or basic sanitation, as well as an estimate of the nutrients recovered in terms of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and the percent of locally produced food and fertilizers. These results can give the players an indication of how well they did in managing a circular sanitation system. So that is what is inside the box. If you would like to know more, please contact the SPANS project. I would like to introduce you. So, thank you. That was the video showing the contents of the game and what it can do. I'm hoping that it answered maybe a few of the questions that I've seen coming up in the chat. But if not, we're going to take some time now to do a panel discussion, and I'll bring up some of those that I don't think that we've quite answered yet as well. But to start with, that we have a panel here that is represented by, we have the game designer with us today, as well as members of the SPANS team who are involved in the game design, and even someone from the Kampala City Council authorities who was involved in some of the initial play testing of the game. So I'd like to start with Eric Ombring, actually, that Eric can turn his video on. Hello, Eric. Eric Ombring was our game designer who we worked with for developing this game. He has a background as a game designer and graphical artist, and he has developed a number of serious games and worked with gamification related to projects over the past 10 years. So Eric, Monica talked about this big specification list that we had when we came to you for developing this game. What would you say was the most challenging part of trying to design this game?
Yeah, like Monica said, I agree with it is important to try to bring, of course, all the learning into the game, but you always have to consider the more learning you try to put in the game, the more advanced the game potentially becomes. So you always have to keep the balance between gameplay and the learning. So keep the game as simple as possible, so that most of the time that the players don't have to learn the game, but they can learn the information relayed from the game instead.
Eric, did you have more to say on that?
Huh? Sorry.
Did you have more to say on that?
Yeah, I can add some more if you didn't have any more questions. Other questions? Monica talked about the. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I just saw a question that could be for you in the chat. So, but continue with the first question from Martin, Jennifer, I think could be put to Eric when Eric has finished with.
Okay, well, we'll throw it at him right now. That there was a question here that do you think that there could be a mainstream audience for this beyond the water and sanitation sector?
I think definitely there could be a mainstream audience for it. There may have to be some tweaks in the game to streamline it more, but of course it is designed to be played, and it's designed to be easy to play. So definitely, I think so.
Oh, thanks. I'd like to bring in Jan Henrik Kine here as well. That Jan Henrik is from Chalmers University of Technology, where he's a professor in urban transformation at the Department of Architecture and Civil Engineering. And among other topics, that he has been studying multi-stakeholder processes linked to circular infrastructure provision in sanitation and waste services in both the Global South and the North. And he's been doing that for like almost 30 years now. So Jan Henrik, you were involved in this process of game development, and we've heard a little bit about the challenges of doing this, but what would you say that you were most happy about regarding the resulting game that we came up with?
Yes, thank you for letting me be part of this panel. There are three things that come to my mind, actually. The first thing is about this need for simplification that Eric sort of argumented a lot for when we developed the game. And I was quite worried that important aspects would get lost while doing that simplification. But now when I see the game, I'm actually very happy that the game still manages to capture many of the important aspects of what might be called a circular sanitation economy. And it seems to lead to very important discussions among the players. So I think we sort of managed to keep that balance in good shape. The second thing that I noted is that the game ended up being very playable and engaging for quite a wide set of stakeholders, not only the sanitation nerds, but also, as we have seen, the students and other players. And it seems to make people discuss sanitation with more detail and especially with more energy than is probably the case without the game. So I think that is very good to sort of bring sanitation, make it a bit hotter as a topic for people. And third, but this is what I've heard from the Uganda experience, so we will hear more about that, that it not only appears to bring up the topic of sanitation higher up on the agenda, but also seems to bring a wider set and number of stakeholders together. And I think that's very important for possibilities to reach a system-wide change that is needed for resource recovery and a sort of circular sanitation system.
Thank you, Jan Henrik.
Jennifer, there are so many questions. I don't know how you will handle them.
We're getting at it. It's just fantastic. I'm going to bring in Charles here, and then Charles, because I see that I want him to answer. There's a question in here as well. Dr. Charles Nwagaba that we have here. He's been part of the SPANS team. He's an associate professor at the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering at Makerere University in Kampala, where he teaches public health and environmental engineering, has nearly 20 years experience working with water supply, wastewater excreta management, etc. And Charles, that you were originally very skeptical to this idea of serious games when we initiated this project. That I've seen in the comments here, the questions, that also you have colleagues from Ethiopia that were also skeptical to the whole idea of playing. That you've changed your mind about that during the process of this, developing the game and playing it. Can you explain a little bit why? And maybe a shout out to Ethiopia there, why you think it could work with gaming.
Yes, thank you very much, Jennifer. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
For me, my mind, whenever I heard of things to do with games, I always thought something just joking, or I really never considered it something serious. To the extent that at first I wasn't sure of how to invite people and how they would consider me to invite them to just play a game. However, as you have been mentioning, the fact that the game brought in different stakeholders who in playing the games saw the linkage between their work or their roles to that of others, to me, brought in quite a lot of learning that may warrant a person to actually want more from the game. So I think that it might not be to tell a person who has no interest in trying it to really understand it, but provided a person gives it a chance and plays it with another stakeholder, I think that it's very clear, evident, is but also to see how the work of one affects or links to the work of another state. So based on that, it really changed my mind, and I'm a very, very serious promoter of this game. Yes.
Yes, thanks, Charles. It's been fun to watch your journey with the serious gaming as well. And just a kind of a follow-up question, did you, because you were our main contact person trying to get people to come to these gaming workshops, did you experience any trouble getting them to come?
Well, I'm glad that there are some who have joined. Yeah. But there could be, somebody who hasn't seen, there could be the same feeling as I had before. But I'm sure that as we get them to learn more and see how it links to other steps of work, then we'll increase their acceptance need for this.
You're fading out, Charles, a bit.
About it and even play it.
Charles, I think we lost the last.
Well, I was trying to think that. So, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you a little better now.
I was trying to say that. Yes, I was trying to say that. Well, I invited the stakeholders to participate in this webinar, and I'm happy that some. But I was saying that it is possible that others, especially who have not had an understanding of the game, may not participate for the same reasons that I had before I learned more about it. So I think that as we get more people to the game, then we'll increase understanding and acceptance as well as application of this kind of concept.
Okay, thank you. And then I want to bring in also into this conversation that we have Alan, and he is working for the Kampala City Council authorities here. And he's been one of these people that we reached out to bring into the gaming. And I would say actually he was a little bit more enthusiastic than Charles at the beginning even. Maybe it's a generational piece we have. But Alan is a graduate from Makerere University with a master's degree from the University of Surrey And he's been working for about 15 years within the sector of water and sanitation. Alan, do we have you with us here?
Yes, Jennifer. Thanks for the intro.
Great. Alan, I was wondering that you were one of the first that was with us to play the games. And we have some questions here about what you can learn from the game and how much does it really bring out the idea of resource recovery and such. So I was wondering, when you started playing the game, what do you remember most about playing Reclaim?
Thank you, Jennifer, once again. It's great to be here, and thanks. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Super. It was great playing the versions of the games as you and Monica brought them out. I think it was Eric's work to test and see how the game actually rolls. I'll admit I'm a game fan, so for me it was a good starting point. But with regards to the actual subject matter of sanitation and resource recovery, I think the game is a very good, or gives a very good visual introduction into the concepts surrounding sanitation. So that's the technology side of things, that's the planning side of things, as well as the reuse. And those linkages are clearly spelled out as one plays the various roles within the game. So from, if you like, a planning point of view, getting to know the constraints of different technologies, but also objectives. One thing that really stood out for me is that if you're thinking about resource recovery, then that's a very good starting point to then come downstream or upstream with the treatment technologies that you require, about the whole sanitation infrastructure that will be needed in an urban area to efficiently serve that resource recovery purpose. So for me, that really came out very well. What I also liked was I think in the last version, the introduction probability or chance, as well as the I think we call them unintended events. Am I right, Monica? So saying you can do as much planning as you can, but sometimes it happens. So how resilient are your systems, and can you still achieve your original objective of resource recovery when all these things are happening? So I thought that was a very good twist to the game. It was a very engaging twist to the game as well as that whole participatory approach. The fact that there are 4 roles and that every player gets a chance to play a different role, if not all the roles, depending on the time that is allowed for. I thought that was also very useful, especially as we advocate in a scenario of a city where you have various stakeholders all contributing to the planning process. I thought that was a very good opportunity or way of engaging all the stakeholders to understand the different pressures, to understand the different lenses through which each stakeholder would analyze a given scenario. I think the challenge that Monica mentioned of time is the key one, because it took a bit of time for everybody to get warmed up to understand the ins and outs of the game. But once we did that, then we all got to really enjoy the game. And the big one for us was whether we could introduce our politicians to also participate in this game, so and also help in the decision making. We didn't get the chance to do that, but I'm hoping Monica and Jennifer, you'll be back so we can engage the politicians. And I've
That's what
said too
we're
much,
hoping
but
for,
let's share that is the experience.
No, thank you, Ellen. I think you brought up a lot of really good points there, and just this piece reaching out to the politicians, which we're really hoping to do. That, you know, COVID kind of got in the way there a bit, but hopefully it's coming. And I think you pointed out this unexpected events there, which actually answers one of these questions that we had in the chat about climate change issues. And there are some chance cards, you can say, that come up in the game, and some of them are related to flooding or droughts or other issues like that. So there is elements of that do come up into the game as well. That I'm gonna throw a last question here to maybe last. We'll see if where we end up with time. But back to Monica here, that you had mentioned some of these results about some of the game testing a little bit. We have one question actually from the audience who was wondering here, how do we know if our goal, if we're achieving this goal of collaboration and knowledge sharing, attitude change within the game? Can you mention a little bit about, you know, some of the testing that we've done and future plans related to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I read the question also here. So in the second round now, when we played the last prototype, which is kind of almost what you have in the box, we have made some refinements. In that testing, we had this pre-survey where we actually put some questions that were meant to see if any attitude change may have happened. And we also and we have other questions about. So we had several questions that we have thought about for all these three aims actually. And then we had this post survey, and we also had this discussion and the observation. We also observed. We also had one that was actually noting what was happening and observed the game. And then the discussion, we took notes. And then when we had, and after the post survey, so we went through the pre and the post survey, me and Jennifer, and then we put out questions for the interview. And then we can see that attitude change with this group. What we have here was most of the people who played were really very well educated in the area. They were already kind of on the forerunners in a way for resource recovery. And so but we could see some attitude change, which were in this case for this group, it was not that, it was more on, okay, we need to be more careful because there are also risks with actually the resource recovery. If it's not well treated, it could spread disease, for example. So for maybe for some of them who were not so advanced in sanitation planning, some of the few of the players, they more took this attitude change thing. You could see that in the game. So we need we need to play with the groups who are not already in planning also to see more of this attitude change towards learning. Now it goes around. Why does it go around? The sound. Okay. So and then that was one thing. What we could see was really clear that the collaboration part, also as Alan said, they came up very strong, and also in the interview that was, and also that the resource recovery were really well visualized and illustrated. And what came out in the interviews that was really how strong this is with the whole sanitation sanitation chain, that you really need to bring all the stakeholders, and that many times planning is actually in different silos, as you said, Jennifer, in the beginning, and that it came out strong that okay, transportation is important, emptying is important. We kind of have to have the whole chain covered and have to discuss. So that was the kind of the strongest thing. And also, of course, that was about the methodology. Maybe you want to add something to that, maybe, or
I think that is good. We have someone says, thanks for answering my question. So I think you hit it. That as you mentioned as well, that we hope to do follow-up testing and training people to actually use this game as well. That we've seen quite positive responses so far, but again, we need to have more people playing it. I wanted to there was a few other questions here that I thought maybe I could just answer directly. I don't know if I totally introduced myself, but Jennifer McConville from the Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences. And I'm actually the project leader behind this whole project, so I've been heavily involved in it myself. But there was a few questions about this piece about the advanced, the green treatment systems, if it has to be source separated, or if the focus is only on fecal sludge and excreta. And the answer is no. It's not totally just excreta that if you saw in that video clip here, that we're talking about recovering wastewater or excreta from households. So it's including all those different types of technologies, and then moving it to treatment plants. And we're connecting it to this book that we have of resource guide to resource recovery from sanitation systems. And that also includes using irrigation water, recovered wastewater, energy, these other types of technologies as well. So there is more into it. Those cards actually provide more details, and especially if you link it to the books. So that, I think, is most of the questions we have there. And I wanted to show one last slide here as a way to actually answer some of the last questions that are there. Let me see, I just show that screen, I think. So there was a number of questions about where do we get the game? And the answer to that is that the game, being a board game, it's very difficult to put it open access, although we will make the cards available and the rule book available open access by the beginning of December. But if you want a hard copy of the game, that we're going to do a limited edition, depending on interest. We're going to order a number of games that you can actually get the box in your hands. Unfortunately, it's a rather expensive game, partly because we have these dice that have to be specially made. But it depends a bit how many we order, but somewhere in between the range of 80 to 100 euro if you want a box with the Reclaim game. There would be a shipping on top of that. But if you are interested in purchasing such a game, that you can send me an email at jennifer.mcconville@slu.se by the end of this month, because then we will put together an order and order the number of games that people are interested. So send me an email and write order Reclaim in the subject line so I can keep track and sort it, so that that you can get yourself a game. So that would be the availability of the game. And this information, though, so there you can also find me, I think, is the easiest way. If you want to tell colleagues about it, you can tell them that Jennifer McConville is working on this, and find her email and send her an email to be able to order it. So that's what we have for the game. As I said, I'll put the other material on the line if you want to try and print or make your own game. That we will also make up there is an Excel sheet that I showed where you can keep track of the digital results, what type of sanitation systems you're building, and that will also be made available.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
Do you have any possibility to answer some of these questions from Malena, Dorothy, and Lilia and Martin? That's about this with how the treatment is decided and about the different systems and the conditions. Did you see the question, or should I?
I did, and I thought I answered that with regards to these cards that are in this.
Okay.
So that you build housing, and as you build a housing block, that you can select a card that has a different type of technology in it, and whether it's a dry toilet or a flush toilet, a urine diversion toilet, there's different types of sanitation systems that you can put in a household unit. And they're also then similarly, when you build a treatment plant, there's different cards with different technologies on them. So
I think it was important to put that out, that it actually could be resource recovery systems that are dry and some that are wet, and so that's good.
Yeah, and we've actually made the cards so that you can put the cards side by side next to each other, so that if you have a urine diversion toilet and you want to try and connect it to a treatment plant that does not accept urine, then there won't be a match between the two cards. So that you can also play it as a simply matching your cards game to see which types of housing level technologies match the treatment level technologies.
But that is also interesting to point out, Jennifer, if I can say that this with to see the box as a toolbox, because we could see that also in Uganda when we were discussing it, that we could play just with the props, the game props, so like the cards, as you say. I think you can play a role play with the game cards, or just play with them in a workshop, or you can use the game prop for discussing planning in different ways.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we're also hoping to further develop when we do these trainer of trainer workshops, is that how this box of material for doing new types of workshops. You don't have to play the game by the rule book, but you could potentially, how can you put these pieces together and use it as a visualization aid within a planning process. So with that, I would like to thank you all for attending this webinar and to listening to us talk about the Reclaim game. If you're interested and you just want to follow up and not only just order the game, but continue a discussion regarding serious gaming with myself or any members of the SPANS team, please feel free to contact us. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks to everyone. And thank you to Finn for doing all the behind the screens digital work.
Yeah, you're welcome. I really enjoyed it. It's really
Thanks.
I think this was fun. Really fun.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Monica.
Yeah,
thank you, Tim.
thank you, Alan. Thank you,
Alan. So thank you so much, Alan, for all this time. I hope we can really implement it and have a chance. And I think I just caught COVID. I think my son is sick, and I think we are all of it. He lost his taste and his smell now. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry about that, but yeah, we'll be looking forward to. Actually, I'm here with Jude, and he was asking the same question. Huh? Saying, yeah, when is the next?
Yeah, as soon as they let us travel, we hope to be able to come. So that's our hope. Yep. And there will be a video of this. It was recorded, so we'll be able to share it then with Alan and Jude and your colleagues with KCCA or Charles at the universities there. That we'll send the link once it's posted on YouTube, so that you guys can also spread it to more colleagues in Uganda or elsewhere.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks a lot.
Bye bye. Thanks.
Yep. Goodbye.
Goodbye.